This is about how to practice AI in our own brain. I just read in 2 minutes about the backpropagation and forward propagation as a term, how the AI can play with information that we give for the AI, and the data stored can be used to bring out the answer to the statement that we asked the AI to work on. So they go through one step at a time, and each step they try to figure out the amount of how we can align the answer potential by putting some weight, such that the computer can step by step figure out the priorities within the scheme of things that they can play with the computer database, and to find the result. So it is the forward and backward. Forward is, I think, to structure the weight function, what you want to play out, and the backward is collecting the information stored any place in the computer to match to that input and go through that step by step. So if you think about the way we think, that's an interesting expression, thinking of how we think. We do the same, except in the previous video, I was talking about it has to be worked out in certain sequence. Just like in the case of the AI, we have things to do. We want to explore the world in the way that makes more sense. So we start to, let's say in the morning, let's plan to do this and that. So you have some weight function, meaning the priorities of what is to be done. So now you get into the process, and as soon as you get into first step and then you start to do it, then computer doesn't work, for example. It may not be a good example, but that's what happened. So you have to figure out the answer. So every step of the way, the feedback given will give you a jolt and realigning of the weight and what action to take. So going back and forth, forward and backward, let's step one is this, and for that, this is the first step from the answer, and the second and third and so forth. So how to integrate? I'm not talking about it, but it's supposed to be done in certain fashion. But the sequence of those events is exactly what I was talking about, how to live in life following certain priorities that we may have to accomplish and do that. So in the previous video, and the first one before that, there was another video that you might want to take a look at it. The previous video, I mentioned that I have worked out the solution in a longer term prioritization process, so that that's too much of a conceptual word, I'm sorry for it, but it's fairly simple that every 3 months or so, I monitor 6 items as key performance indicators: living truthfully and sincere, and work, hobby, relationship, health, and finance. I've done it for the last 25 years. That is the longer term review of how I'm doing. It's like annual report or quarterly report going through PDCA, so you can realign it and what weight, what was the accomplishment. So there is a numerical figures to correspond to each of those items as the goal and then actual, so that I can see the picture at the long-term basis every 3 months. And then every day I do this black dot exercise, which is daily review of what has happened. And I've done this for the last 25 years or so too. And the point is that if you have some issues, negative learning, or something happened, I put the black dot because I didn't do it right, or my emotion, I was deluded, or some such thing, so that the result was not good or the process was not good. So I put the black dot. Big or small indicate how I'm living, So that's one of the measurement, output measurement. The input part is that what I have done during the day. So going back and forth, like how many minutes I meditated and how many black dots I had, you can take a look at it. Without thinking, you can just visualize, okay, this is the relationship. And if there's a good relationship of the amount of time and the frequency of meditation corresponding to less or more black dot, that gives me a sense of what's going on. So that was basically a scientific approach. So that, comparing to the life profile, will give you a sense of how things are done. And on top of the daily one, I was talking about the multiple times of the check within one day. So that's another discussion. But basically the same kind of a logic to go long term, medium term, short term, PDCA, Shila Samadhi Panya, and keep on making sure that I'm on track of certain things and priorities of what to do, what's important, what's urgent, can be addressed with certain level of perspective and understanding. So, what I just realized by reading this propagation model, forward path and backward path, I realized computer seem to be doing the same when you apply idea in AI. And I was thinking like that, and I was saying about the backpropagation, and how we can benefit machine versus human. And I don't want to have to go beyond that. I have some idea that more of how to coordinate process. Well, actually, I just say one thing. I mentioned about the case of using the AI for legal issues to be addressed. And I worked out the long-term plan, medium-term, and short-term plan and processed it. Our discussion between me and the AI was corresponding to that. So it's like an example of the journey, climbing up the mountain. You don't think too much in detail down the road. But if you get there, this is what I want to do. The next level is to get there, this is what's going to be. And depending upon the circumstance of what's happening, that some deviation may need to be addressed, and that's the new insight that you have to come as you go on in your life journey or climbing up the mountain, or the same as how to live life and how AI may do the job. They have some common framework, I believe, is being played out, and therefore the idea that I shared with this life profile and black dot exercise, and the last one was kind of like a meditation multiple times, or even touching your heart to clarify your thought, and then go into prioritize, have a perspective to move on. So I see that model functioning within myself, and I just realized and confirmed that AI approach seemed to take the same process. So that's the main point. But now what I can think, because of that, understanding, or hypothesis you might call it, is how to have the AI best utilized for the human to work with. So to say it simply, what I have done for the last 20 years makes sense. Long term, medium term, and short term. And if we are working in that process and dealing with AI with the same process, what we think is important is the issue that you talk with AI and you communicate with them, maybe sharing your life profile and the black dot exercise and whatever. In my case, I can use my YouTube video as a database for them to look at in future. Maybe I'm doing it for that reason too. Kind of a little joking, but I think it's doable scientifically. So that's how we might engage ourselves with AI. And the important point, just thinking ahead, is that the AI can be abused. But this again is the issue of the organizational change that has to take place, which is not just depend on top-down, but empowerment of the people. Each of us, the layman, have to have the good judgment, because if you choose the wrong top management or the legal process or the president, whatever happens, authoritative or not, I'm not going to go into it too much. But that result comes with what people are thinking about him. How do the people make judgment? That has been my big concern. And at least conceptually, I can see what I just mentioned makes sense. And I'm just sharing with you. And what happens next is another story, because it's just a big picture thing. But given that picture, I think I may be able to navigate my life maybe a little slightly different from here on, with put different emphasis so that we make the most of it for everybody, every being be happy with certain strategy and the process that is customer friendly, that we can make most of it. Thank you. Give me any comment if you have. I appreciate it.